The reading for this morning is from Harlem by Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode?
To fling my arms wide in the face of the sun, dance whirl, whirl, till the quick day is done. Rest at pale evening, a tall, slim tree.
Our sermon for this morning, as written by Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein. A funny thing happened on the way to this sermon, which is that I composed most of it on Thursday and then fell ill on Thursday night. I'm grateful to Reverend Chris for giving voice to these Memorial Day reflections, even though they are still unfinished. Today, two young neighbors came over to deliver a thermometer, a COVID test, and to walk my dog for me. They are both college sophomores, one in Lowell, Massachusetts, and the other at NYU. I asked them how their year had been, and they both honestly responded that it had been rough. Felix said that New York City is a scary place to be right now, with the protests on his NYU campus and, of course, up at Columbia. I have been following this story closely, watching how young people are dismissed, mocked, and even demonized for requesting conversations with their school administrators about how and where they are spending the university's money, which is simply, to my mind, what we should all be doing with institutions we support or whose names we choose to affiliate with. When I was a student at Northwest University in the late 1980s, the students occupied the administrative offices and created encampments meant to recreate the visual of a South African shantytown. The protesters were jeered then, too. Chicago is cold, and we were located on Lake Michigan. And why would you dummies choose to put yourselves in danger of catching pneumonia when you know you're not going to be effective? The students wanted the school to divest from South Africa, which at that time was an apartheid regime. One of my professors, the exiled South African poet Dennis Brutus, wrote in Somehow We Survive, "Somehow we survive, and tenderness frustrated does not wither. Investigating searchlights rake our naked, unprotected contours. Boots club the peeling door, but somehow we survive. Severance, deprivation, loss. Patrols uncoil along the asphalt dark, hissing their menace to our lives. Most cruel, all our land is scarred with terror, rendered unlovely and unlovable. Sundered all are we and all our passionate surrender, but somehow tenderness survives. America has always been a land of dreams, but those dreams were too often reliant on the erasure and violent subjugation of entire populations. Guns and military power so that my people and I can live the dream, and to hell with you. Perhaps the youth are naive, or perhaps they have a more expansive dream based on the reality that a decent life and thriving is possible for all here and elsewhere. No, they're not dumb, they're dreaming. And we want them to dream. They are the first generation that can share information and report from the front lines of their lives 24 hours a day. What has been covert is now out in the open. For instance, lines of police officers kitted out in military gear, prepared with bayonets and tear gas to disperse, silence, arrest, and interfere with dreams. No one, and especially not youth, are going to be perfect in the expression of their dreams for America. Who do we look to as the wise ones to articulate the American dream today? There are none perfect. Wisdom is a mosaic, a tapestry that is woven by multiple perspectives and voices. I am constantly astonished by the way that well-meaning white Americans will still quote Martin Luther King when there is unrest, resistance pushing against violence, destruction of property, or expressions of rage. They will wring their hands and trot out the comfortable slogans from over 50 years ago by a man murdered for his ideas and then sanitized and made into a convenient saint. I love and honor Dr. King, but there are so many other prophetic leaders right now who have taken up the freedom struggle. We need to actively find and listen to them, not to co-sign every word that comes from their mouths, but to hear what dreamers of today have to say about their vision. Shruti Kumar, recent commencement speaker at Harvard University. Tammy Triolo, a Bahamian American woman who centers empathy in her anti-racism work and consulting in the corporate world. Annabelle Jenkins, who you will never hear about, who handed a copy of Margaret Atwood's book, The Handmaid's Tale, to her school superintendent in the diploma line instead of shaking his hand because he had the book banned. You have heard of the bestsellers and the talking heads on big platforms, but the landscape of American visionaries is so much wider than that. They are professors on YouTube or TikTok, drawing connections between economics, domestic policy, foreign policy, powerful institutions, corporate and educational systems, agriculture, and the environment. There is an embarrassment of riches out there. As I say, not all of it is perfect, and some of it is more curious than anything else. But we are members of a faith tradition that holds curiosity and openness to new ideas central to our ethical engagement. What is your dream for America, and who does it include? Whose perspective do you trust most, and why? We will never all share the same dream for this country. When we consider the service rendered by all the soldiers, dead and alive, whose lives we honor tomorrow, we should remember that they too held a variety of dreams for America. Very likely, they did not dare to express those dreams in great detail, as they would have seen the high social cost paid by those who expressed doubts, fears, and moral concerns about the wars in which they fought. They were obedient and remained in a cohesive unit to the gates of death. Those that died. For those who survived, even afterwards, they may not have felt supported in questioning, processing, sharing the full complexity and horror of the things they saw and the things they were required to do. They held and hold within their bodies and psyches the American dream, both in its romanticized self-image and in its shadow aspect. As I am composing these thoughts while running a fever, I will not continue for much longer, although I had wanted to share more material from Paul Loeb's Soul of a Citizen, Living with Conviction in Challenging Times. It is a really good text which I commend to all of you, although the revised edition came out in 2010 and is somewhat dated. I am heartened by Loeb's attention to the power of local communities to practice what he calls village politics, where people who have established relationships create opportunities to examine local, national, and even global issues. He writes, "When we use these networks to promote humane social visions, we can build on existing bonds of human conviviality and connection, and we have the advantage of acting where people know us." End quote. And he includes this beautiful poem by Rainer Maria Rilke, which hearkens us to loyalty, love, honor, and vision. "My eyes already touch the sunny hill, going far ahead of the road I have begun. So we are grasped by what we cannot grasp. It has an inner light, even from a distance, and changes us, even if we do not reach it, into something else, which, hardly sensing it, we already are. May we honor their sacrifice by staying on the road they began, striving toward what we cannot grasp, but by whose light we carry on."